Forwarding to the cloud. Welcome to another edition of the bi-weekly SIG CLI meeting. I'm your host, Sean Sullivan. We're going to start with some announcements, and then we're going to progress to a couple of introductions. I see there's a couple of people who don't normally attend our meetings, and then we're going to get into our topics. So the only announcement that I'm aware of is has to do with the 124 release, which is at the end of March, then in March 29th. Does anybody else have any other meetings or announcements? Okay. So why don't we move on to introductions? I'm going to introduce one of our topic presenters, Tom Granot. I hope I pronounced that correctly for you, Tom. Would you like to introduce yourself?
You did, yes, thank you. This is a bit of a tongue twister, so thank you for getting it right. My name is Tom. I'm the Director of Developer Relations at a startup called Lightrun. And I would present when my time comes an open source project we'd like to contribute back to the SIG. So we'll talk about that then. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome. Is there anyone else who hasn't been here for a while or is showing up for the first time and would like to introduce themselves to the rest of the SIG?
Yes, hi, my name is Holden O'Neill. Well, let me turn my video.
Hi, Holden.
My name is Holden O'Neill. I'm a software developer at SAS Institute. You may be familiar with one of my previous coworkers, Bailey Hayes, who I've seen her name in here and talked to her a bunch. She's at Single Store now, but I'm picking up a bunch of the work around our internal usage of Kustomize and creating customized manifests and doing all that jazz. So I thought I'd jump in, start attending some of these meetings and hear, what's going on with the community and try to contribute back where I can.
It's a pleasure to meet you. And Bailey, that does sound familiar. Is there anyone else who'd like to introduce themselves?
Yeah, I'm Arda Güçlü. This is my first SIG CLI meeting. I'm working at Red Hat. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Okay, why don't we move on to the topics then if we have no more introductions. So I see Katrina's here. Katrina, would you like to talk about consolidating customized documentation? And I will attempt to present that document.
Yeah, so this is just an issue on the customized repo. We are really excited to have a volunteer to tackle this, which we're hoping to find someone who is interested in taking on the issue in a holistic way and seeing it through. And we got a volunteer. So we're looking to make a plan as to what we want to do with this more specifically. To outline the problem, customized documentation is split across 4 different places. There is a legacy version of the site that's still being published off of the repo itself, like with GitHub Pages, and that is mostly redirects, but it hasn't been entirely cleaned up. There's the main documentation, so most of it, which is being published off the SIG CLI experimental repo, which is a Hugo site. It has the most information by far, and is otherwise definitely the best source, but it has severe SEO problems. If you Google customized docs, it doesn't come up. So that's the main problem with that one. And the examples inside the customized repo itself are also a really great source of documentation. We run tests we run them as tests, which is really nice, but they are completely separate from the main documentation because they're over on our repo, so they're not integrated. And then the fourth place is some sparse docs in the main Kubernetes docs themselves, which that one, I think that's okay that we have a little bit of documentation there, and it's not an appropriate place to go into extreme levels of detail about advanced customized features. But the other three are what we want to consolidate. Oh, wait, did I even mention the customized.io? That's the front page that Replicated donated to us. So that one links back to, I think, the GitHub Pages site that's mostly redirects. It is a single page thing that is prettier than the rest of our docs and actually has good SEO. So there you go. Tons of different spots that we have the docs. And the goal is to consolidate them and make it easier on our users and on us to maintain this stuff going forward. The two main options that I see are sticking with the SIG CLI site, which is, it's basically for kube control and customize, and every single page that you go to, there's like a bifurcation, like, guides, customize kube control, API documentation, customized kube control. Like it's got two sections in pretty much every section to split apart the docs for those two tools. They are connected, of course, but it's a little disjoint. That is certainly possible for us to port all the content over there. The disadvantage is that we continue to have the examples on our own repo in order to test it with our regular suite, so that won't be integrated. And it is, the information architecture is a little challenging. Like we couldn't, for example, like just bring in the customized.io homepage from Replicated because it's not a dedicated site. So we can't just say, okay, we're going to use that as our entry point and we're going to merge everything else in. Like that wouldn't really work if the site is still SIG CLI. The other option is to probably in Customize's repo itself, take all the customized content from the SIG CLI site and from all these other places, use some sort of version of the Replicated pretty homepage as the entry point, and put all the customized specific content there, and actually use customized.io for the home of our documentation, take advantage of its SEO and like the dedicated site. That's more work, but we've also been approached by SIG docs in the past to have the kubectl portion of the SIG docs merged up to the main Kubernetes docs site. I think it's clearly inappropriate to move the customized specific deep docs there, but kubectl, maybe someday they'll come back and actually work on that. So if that were to happen, then we would be asking ourselves this question about the customized docs again. So that's another thing to keep in mind with these options. So I guess that's the situation. Does anyone have any thoughts on which of these two options seems more desirable? Does the SIG feel strongly about, like, historically, why did kubectl and customize end up merging the docs in the first place to SIG CLI? Any feedback or historical context or opinions on this?
Have we been in contact with SIG docs about this, about strategy?
Not about customize. They approached us about kubectl at this meeting. I want to say in the fall.
Right.
So yeah, I had been talking to SIG docs. It definitely fell through the gaps there, and they definitely had a period of turnover with leadership, and so we can bring it back up to them. The idea our original docs site was from a Google Season of Docs mentee, I believe. I think they're the ones who worked on the CLI experimental one. Mm-hmm. The LFX, the Linux Foundation's mentorship program, which is also project driven, application deadline closes for the 25th. So we still have 2 days if we want to submit a project for mentees to work on. So if we would have to provide guidance though, right? It's like we have to scope it out, we have to help them. So if we're looking for like someone to, a mentee to put time into and help them get through it, like that might be a good option.
Yeah, we did get a volunteer already to drive it, so that is a good idea. That sounds like a very tight timeline to get that going. But I'm more wanting to bring up the like, what do we actually do? What would we ask them to do specifically?
Yeah, we should probably talk to SIG again. Because I don't think any of us feel very strongly about either way. We'd like it cleaned up. We'd like it all in one place if possible. But
I guess that's the question. Do we want it all in one place? Because I don't know. I guess my personal opinion is that I would think it kind of makes more sense for Kustomize to be separate because of that bifurcation. Like every single time you try to look something up on our existing doc site, you have to, there's extra clicks to go through to the actual tool that you're looking for. And I'm not sure that for an end user, the SIG CLI branding is meaningful. Like, why do they care which SIG maintains it? Do they even know that? Like, they probably are looking for the tool, not for the SIG. So like, I actually lean towards having Kustomize.io and kubecontrol.io separated, even if kubecontrol stays independent. But yeah, I think before we bring it to SIG docs, we should probably like, if we have an opinion, we should settle on it.
I, for one, don't have a strong opinion. I think that the kubecontrol and the Kustomize, because of the kubecontrol -k commands, they're not completely independent. There is a coupling there.
There is. It's actually maybe even a little confusing to have the complete docs side by side, because so the only thing from Kustomize that's in kubecontrol is kubecontrol Kustomize and apply-k, and those are both specifically build. It's not actually kubecontrol Kustomize isn't like an embedded Kustomize inside kubecontrol. It's like an embedded Kustomize build. So there's a lot of stuff that if you think it's the latter, or sorry, the former, you're going to be confused, and we don't do a good job of explaining that. So like,
that's a good point.
Where's the source for this? Is it all underneath the docs directory on the Kustomize repo, or is it that also spread out?
The source is in a whole bunch of different places.
Okay.
And mostly SIG CLI experimental. That's the source for the SIG CLI site entirely.
Mhm.
But the replicated content is donated the code, like the open sourced it, and they made us maintainers of it. So we have access to modify it, but it's still in their org.
Got it.
Yeah.
By the way, I noticed that the tutorial link on the Kustomize.io site is broken. That's just a side note there.
Yes, it is. And we've been getting reports about that since before we had access to the code. We should probably just remove the link. We don't have access to the API that backs that, and we don't have the bandwidth to maintain it either, even if we did. So I think we should just go ahead and remove that.
Okay.
Which is, it's kind of sad. People, when we've offered that as an option before, they said, but it was great.
Was those, we're using Katacoda there or something else?
I don't even know. It's not ours.
Right. Okay.
It predates me, and it was put together by Replicated.
Okay. Is the source is the source entirely Hugo based, or is that also a bit spread out? All Hugo?
I think it's all Hugo, but different like themes or whatever Hugo calls them. Sorry, I'm not very versed in Hugo.
Yeah.
But
okay.
Yeah.
All Hugo. Okay, good.
So Natasha on chat has expressed a desire to separate the Kustomize.io, and she has strong insight into, obviously, into Kustomize.
Yeah, I think for me, the main reason for that would just to be so that we can have it in our own repo, so that they can double as tests. And also, I think it's like customize.io is, if you just look up customized documentation, that's the first site people go to. So it would be great to just have everything on there.
We could use like if we're effectively building customized IO by gradually moving the content over. Like it is a lot of work, but it's also work that could be done gradually because the new site that we would be repointing customized IO to wouldn't be live immediately, which could be an interesting benefit. Okay, so it sounds like we're okay with pushing for being a separate site, and we need to bring it up with SIG docs to see if they have a strong opinion before we actually do too much here.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sorting all that.
Yeah, thanks for taking the initiative on that, Katrina. Okay, so why don't we? Okay, Eddie, looks like you're up next. If we've finished the previous topic, we're talking KEP 2551 exit codes.
Yeah, this is quick. I had a new contributor reach out that is interested in working on this KEP. I think they're on the call today. I'm gonna butcher your name. I'm so sorry. Parul Sahu. I'm awful with names, but you have any insight you want to share, or what you're looking to work on? Or I suggested they come here and we also can look into the status of this KEP. I think Ross was taking it over for Ricardo.
Yep. Yeah, so I attended this KEP reading club wherein this KEP was being read out, and I thought I can contribute to it. I do not have much insights of the same, so I'm just a beginner level contributor willing to look forward into contributing and understanding the KEP.
Ross, do you have work scoped out, or do you have a starting point or an on-ramp that new contributors can jump onto, or?
Not yet. Other than the KEP itself, there hasn't been there hasn't been much of any work on it yet. So maybe that's worth just reaching out to me, and then we can kind of see if we can coordinate that.
Would it be useful to spend just 30 seconds giving an overview of this particular KEP on exit codes? This is exit codes for kube control, I'm guessing.
Right, yeah. So it really boils down to there's different exit codes for different things. A lot of times you'll just get like an exit code of 1, something failed, but you have no idea what it was. It's especially useful in scripting activities where something might fail, but you're in the position to handle it if you are given the right code, and you know how to work around that code. You can potentially continue the scripting operation until it's successful. So really, the exit codes are about making it easier to automate scripts and to give those scripts a little bit more insight into what's happening.
Got it. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, that sounds good. If you would sync up with Ross, that's probably a great place to get started. And Ross, if you need help scoping out any of that, feel free to let me know too.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so Eddie, is it possible to move to the next topic?
Yep.
Okay, great. So Tom Grenat, sorry, I know I just messed that one up after I worked on it before. Would you like to dig into cool kits?
Yes, please. So is it okay if I share my screen?
Yes, actually, let me, I think I need to make you a co-host. Is that correct, Eddie?
Yeah.
Okay. So Tom, I've made you a co-host. Do you have
Sure.
the UI now to share?
Yes, I do. All right. So first of all, again, thanks for having me first. Well, second time here, I met Katrina last time, and she mentioned it would be a good idea to pop it into the topic list. So a tiny bit of context. Well, I assume I usually start off by mentioning what it is that this whole project is about, which is kubectl debug. I feel as if the room is quite aware of the feature that was released to beta a while back. Specifically, we noticed when the feature, we've been following it for a while now, and we waited for to go into beta. And we noticed one aspect about the API that felt as if it could use a bit of love, which is this part here. So as far as we know, and that might be incorrect, so please feel free to correct me if I'm mistaken here, but there's no default set of images intended for use with kubectl debug. You're basically saying that through a busybox or anything else on that image. So that would spin up when the ephemeral container spins up, basically. Now we thought about it, and I work for an observability company. We build developer native debugging tools for like the cloud native world. And one of the things that kept on coming up is when you're shipping a real production application over Kubernetes, the images are bare, distroless, or just like very tiny images that don't contain all the tools that you need. So we collected a bunch of tools that relate to networking, troubleshooting, and a lot of runtime work, and I'll explain what that means in a moment. Bake them into images that you can use with kubectl debug, create a short script that kind of wraps them around in a nice API way, in a nice API, sorry, and publish the repo. And I want to share just the repo itself. It's called Coolkits, so Kubernetes Toolkits, which we thought was cute. And basically, at the end of the line, it looks something like this. So I have my terminal here, and I will open it up and make it a bit bigger. I have a bunch of pods running on Minikube locally. And the way I usually demo it is if I would do kubectl exec one of those pods using a normal bash terminal, this is running a simple Java application that doesn't do much except for counting prime numbers. My CTO has a fascination with them, so all of our demos are around prime numbers. So if I go here and I try to use, there's obviously Java here. I will have Java, but if I want to do something like use Visual VM to get a nice view of the heap or something, I will not have it. There's no SDK man to install other Java stuff. There's no JMX term to do JMX fun stuff. There's basically nothing on that dimension. So instead, what we could do is we could use Coolkits. So this KK command is a wrapper around the kubectl debug with a bunch of kind of pre-populated parameters. Let me actually see if I can pull up. I have it in the repo. I'll show you in a moment. But anyways, the API feels as so. You give it the command line KK, a name of the pod, the name of the coolkit you would like to enter, in this case, a JVM coolkit, and the name of the deployment. And I have everything I need on path, have everything I need on path. So JMX term, you have it on path. You have SDK to get all the nice Java stuff you'd like. You have HTOP for nice shenanigans with processes, and so forth and so forth. There's a bunch of tools we baked in and kind of pre-configured so they'll be available on path for easy debugging. And if I go back to the repo, you can see that the actual thing that we add to the bash RC of the user is just kubectl debug IT with the name of the pod, the deployment, and the relevant runtime you'd like the runtime coolkit you'd like to spin up with the current process. And we've pushed under our own Docker Hub organization a bunch of different coolkits for different runtimes. We started out with Java, Python, and Node.js. It's what we support back home, so it kind of made sense for us. And we have a bunch of things on the roadmap too. So we'd like to create one specifically for Go. We'd like to add a bunch of tools that are require some finer configuration, other than just kind of getting the binary and doing a D package or kind of installing them using npm install or whatever. So we've got a bunch of stuff coming up. And there's basically two items I wanted to to get kind of to share with the community today. So the first one is we'd like to figure out a way to kind of take this project that we built in-house and figure out how to give that back to the community. And I talked to, I think, the person who wrote kubectl debug originally, not the command line application, but the person who wrote the original kubectl plugin. His name is Verb on Slack. I'm not sure what his actual full name is. He mentioned that this would be a really kind of a good thing to kind of give back to the community. And he said I should pop on the meeting, come to SIG CLI and suggest that. And then I talked to Dims, and he mentioned that I should present it and then perhaps have one of the chairs of the SIG CLI group open a repository on GitHub, see how we can get everything, all of the images pushed onto GCL, given that you folks like it and kind of it makes sense, and take it from there. So basically, I'm an open book. Like I love this. It was such a fun thing to build, and I want to see how we can kind of spread the word and get it for people to use it. One extra comment that is often asked, if you kind of followed my demonstration here, is if I have my own scripts and my own programs that I want to add to Coolkits, how do you do that? So if I want to add a Python module and then use that when I'm debugging to create a real life context situation. So that's something we're considering on the roadmap, kind of bring your own or like augment Coolkit with your own modules type thing. Okay, so I talked a lot, but this is basically the gist of it. And I'd be happy to get opinions, thoughts, comments, flowers, pizza, everything.
So one issue that comes to mind is security. If we're running in somebody's containers, and we're the ones that are providing this, that there seem to be there's going to be some security concerns and issues. So have we thought through that at all?
So this is a very first kind of v0.1 version of the product. So just to kind of show that it is possible, to see whether the API makes sense, and then to kind of harden everything once we get some sort of validation that is even needed and like wild in a real life setting, which we're starting to get a sense that it is. But specifically, before I would kind of suggest this to any real-time production usage, I'd get some, I'm not a security person, but I'd get some security people to kind of take a look and tell me where the surface area is most vulnerable, and kind of proceed from there. Hopefully get people from the Kubernetes SIGs itself to get their eyes on that. That would be awesome. But I thought before, I didn't want to kind of just dump links everywhere. So I thought I'll come here, see what y'all think. And then once that is settled, I can progress to other SIGs and maybe get their eyes on that.
Is the proposal that the base images would be then owned by the SIG CLI, or you would continue to own them? Maybe I missed that. Maybe you said that.
We don't mind, especially. We can push them to the GCL repositories for Kubernetes itself, and then have it under Kubernetes repository. Mm-hmm. We can host them ourselves. We're open, whatever is more comfortable. I was just one of the things that Dims didn't mention, I didn't get quite a good answer on, and the debate about the customized domain here kind of brought that up. Is it easier if we kind of own the resources as a vendor or like a commercial entity, and then once everything is kind of baked and settled, we pass it over? Or if we pass over the resources and kind of the stuff first, and that starts from the beginning of the process, is that easier for the community? And I was a bit iffy on the process inside the SIGs.
Nick is probably the best person to answer this because Nick just went through this last year with the CUI project. So my take is that we love to see community adoption before we adopt something officially as like a maintainer as the SIG. Yeah, Nick, I'd love to hear more about your thoughts, Nick. You just went through this.
Yeah, no, I think the main concerns I would have here are just the continued maintenance of the base images. I think it's a great idea, but I think there's security they're going to skew versus security vulnerabilities. They're going to go out of date. Base images, depending on the repo, there's going to be pull rate limiting, and if we're publicizing these on the main Kubernetes repo, I know that we do this for other things, like I know the job does a job.yaml, which references a Perl base image on Docker Hub. There's a lot of stuff I guess we're already doing that's subject to those rate limiting and security issues. Maybe this is no different than any of that.
So we, again, as a kind of a commercial entity, and this being something that's spawned out internally, we understand that there's a continued maintenance burden on us as the originators of this project, and we're willing to accept and do that. But I would hate for this to kind of go under the radar because it is remaining under the maintenance of a separate commercial entity. I'd like to kind of see how we can at least get some feedback on whether we're doing the right things from the community itself, or like the guiding forces. So once we're ready, once it's fully baked, once it's ready to kind of, it has the community engagement, it has the proper maintenance structures applied to it on a constant basis, has the proper automations in place, perhaps has some sort of, I don't know. Again, I can think about a bunch of different things that might need here before we do that. But what you're basically suggesting, just so I understand, is that we continue maintenance and work on this separately, kind of outside of the SIG and outside of the main project roadmap, and then come back once everything's baked and just kind of show it to you? Or will you like some input on where we're going with this? If this might at some point become more kind of, again, official thing by Kubernetes? I assume, you'd like some input on that and not, just kind of leave it be.
With the CUI, I guess, yes, as Eddie was suggesting, our experience there was, I think we had it out in the open for about a year, even before approaching the SIG CLI. And I think we got up to around, I don't know, 300 or 400 stars. That was sort of a very rough, measure of engagement. And then we did the SIG CLI proposal. We waited, actually after that, we got some thumbs up, but we waited actually another 6-8 months after that, maybe even closer to a year, before the actual repo transition. But because on our side, we needed to do code cleanup. There was just some dirty laundry we needed to clean up, to be honest, on our side. But in the process of that, we got a lot more, we got a lot more adoption. So we got a little more confidence, that this was something worth pursuing. So by the time it was adopted, I think we were up to 900 stars, and then we got a bump, of course, after that, once it was adopted. But that was sort of our progression. It was probably took longer than that because it's a larger project, I would imagine, than this. So I imagine in your case, your turnaround time would be quicker. In terms of what's the user experience proposal here? Is it just to have advertising for the base images, or are you proposing there would be a sort of built-in options to the kubectl debug command set, or there be a separate subcommand? What's the proposal there?
That's a good question. We thought about it a lot, and we wanted to be as less intrusive as possible to begin with, because those two possible avenues that this might take, in my opinion. The first one is people use the base cookies that we suggest, the very highly opinionated version of tools that we choose, and would like to use that as the base images so as to not consider themselves with which type of packages I want to install and so forth. That's option A. If we go with that direction, then to me, it makes more sense to find a way to bake it into kubectl debug itself as a kind of a flag with like, instead of -- image, -- JVM image, or -- networking image, or whatever. That's option A. We felt that this might be too intrusive. So, and also it removes this layer of customization that I feel some people might want in this case, because we might have version, X.1 of JMX term, and somebody needs, X.2 for some other type of project that they have, and is not the specific version with the feature that we need. So we thought about creating an outside command line tool, maybe even a kubectl plugin itself. Again, I don't know yet, which early days, and have the capability to customize the actual image that is being pulled. We will, of course, do all of the enumeration and create the relevant images, but allow the user to customize the exact things they want added to that image using this external CLI/kubectl plugin, and have it live outside of trunk, sorry, basically live it in a different world. I have a sense, and this is just my personal opinion, that we will get an endless amount of please add this requests to the image. should this catch traction, that's going to happen. And I think the best API is to allow the users to customize it themselves. Maybe not all the packages, like get the JVM package and add, I don't know, SBT support or something. And then having that live outside of kind of the main kubectl repository. But that's kind of an asterisk, have what kubectl plugins have with Crew. So the best practice, or like the good way to get good debug images, is to use coolkits. But it doesn't actually live in, I think Crew is now an actual Kubernetes project, but it's not, correct me if I'm mistaken, but it's not part of kubectl itself, right? There's no kubectl crew command. So that's my, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, Crew is a collection of plugins. It's kind of the framework that provides those plugins that was being maintained by Amit. Is that correct?
Yep. So there is a kubectl crew command, but only because Crew itself is a kubectl plugin. They did it
right. In order to manage your plugins, right?
But it's not, correct me if I'm mistaken, but it is not a separate subcommand that is like when you get kubectl, it won't be available because you don't have it installed the Crew plugin for kubectl, right?
Yes.
Right.
I do think that's a really interesting approach, though. If the main goal at this time is to drive adoption, like to build that, like to build a Crew plugin and get it in the Crew index, that would provide like a nice familiar experience for recommending that users try out your thing to try to move forward the adoption side of things.
Yeah, sorry, I should have started with thanking you for wanting to donate this cool thing you've built. So thank you for coming and demoing and sharing.
Sure.
It's always awesome when people want to give back to the community, for sure. We can, I think we should send an email to the KDev mailing list, and we should, you know, especially if you decide to do a plugin, or even now, just be like, hey, like we're starting on this toolkit type thing for debug images. You know, I could absolutely either see this landing as a plugin, or, you know, even if it lands in the debug plugin where we can list, you know, if there's like kubectl debug list images, and we provide like a list of images with different tags and names. And so there's a lot we can do there for sure. I do have the same concerns about maintaining and customizability, and we get a lot of rot when it comes to images, and people don't upgrade their binaries either. We still have people that are using kubectl from like 3 years ago and plus. But yeah, I think it's great, and we should definitely, we can craft an email together if you'd like to send to the KDev mailing list, and yeah, we can see where it all goes from there. But I do appreciate you coming, and I do like the idea, and especially this was definitely in Lee's original vision, was having like some batteries included for debugging images.
So by all means, I'd appreciate, you know, jumping on, I don't know, maybe a separate call or email thread with you to kind of draft up that email. I want to mention one thing that bugged me. I wrote a significant portion of this, the Docker files, kind of the research, and one thing that kind of immediately came to me was kubectl debug, and I'm not sure if this is the correct platform to raise it, but it is kind of, I thought. Kubectl debug, generally speaking, is very infrastructure oriented, in the sense that the type of issues you might be able to debug with it are less application level problems and more infrastructure level problems. And that is true for most debugging utilities in a very highly network distributed environment. A lot of the problems are problems with networking, with things not being where they're supposed to be, and so forth. And this is a question, not a comment. But generally speaking, in the Kubernetes ecosystem as a whole, if you had to debug the application layer of your problem itself, so you can obviously, you know, have the container spin down, spin up, you can swap the image you're using for it, and so forth. But are there any tools currently inside the ecosystem dedicated specifically for application level problems? I'm saying stuff happening inside your own application, not kind of the underlying infrastructure, if that makes sense. It's a different level of abstraction, basically.
Yeah,
I couldn't
My
find
first
them.
thought.
Yeah,
go ahead, Sean.
My first thought is kubectl logs, the application logs being sent out and being collected through kubectl logs.
Yeah, I'd say
that's that's not like a full featured application debugging tool. It's kind of just, here's how you can see some of the logs being spit out by your app.
I'd say that the consensus in the container community has been to bake that stuff into your images when you need it. The debug sidecar type thing it's a great idea that hasn't been capitalized on yet because we haven't had actual toolkits, right? Like we put and this is where we get tricky as like maintainers of the project. And I, for some reason, I keep thinking back to package managers, right? So the Kubernetes project provides binaries and a single Ubuntu Debian repository. And we get requests from everyone in the community. Oh, I want to be able to install kubectl with this package manager, with this package manager. And our philosophy has been to kind of let the community handle distribution for that, as opposed to us maintaining, a repo in every single package manager out there, because there's new one every day, it seems. And I don't know why I keep coming back to that with this, but that's where the that user customization comes with, is like, what are users going to want every bit and tool in here, and we'll have to figure out how to support and handle that if this is something we decide to bake in. But that's getting way ahead of myself. But yeah, I think adoption is a great place to start with getting making awareness of it in the first place.
Right. So this is really interesting because and I'll finish with this because I think we're almost running out of time. We kept on, again, that's literally what I do for a living, application debugging. Like that's what we do, and we kept on running into problems inside people who are not well versed in Kubernetes, who either migrated from mono to microservices and then just kind of figure out how to, run from there. And I heard the term, they sprinkled Kubernetes on us in Hebrew, in my native language, quite a few times. And I felt as if we can get the same experience that you would, and kubectl debug goes a long way towards that. If I can get the same experience I have with debugging with IntelliJ locally on my IDE with a running container in production, that would be awesome. Now this is just, and the toolkit is just like one tiny step in that direction, right? But I felt as if this was what was missing from those people who got Kubernetes sprinkled on them. They needed this type of familiarity with the tools they know, with the environments they know, to do that. And sorry, I'm digressing, but I have like you said, you're going ahead in your mind, Eddie. I am too, and the romantic notion of this all is really excites me. So I really hope we'll work on traction. We'll figure out how to perhaps go ahead with a kubectl plugin. I've written one before. I think you can write one again. And I think that once we have a bit more, I guess, traction, and after the KDEV email, we'll come back with some good news, hopefully, and get this moving. All right. I super appreciate the opportunity to come talk to you all today. It's awesome, just awesome. So yeah, I'm here for the end of the meeting, but.
So Tom, going forward, I think it might be useful instead of, so if this gets brought up once, it might not get circled back to, but if you put something on the agenda, like, maybe not even a full topic, but just like as a stand-up, like here's to remind everybody on a regular basis, it might be a process which is more productive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. So I guess not like every bi-weekly meeting, but like once a month or so, I'll jump back with some updates on. So this is what's been happening with Coolkits. Ta-da! And then we can take it from there. Awesome.
Yeah, I think the community would love to continue to hear how this progresses.
Definitely. I'll keep you all posted. And again, thank you.
So thank you very much, Tom. We, if we're able, look, we can move on to our last item. I believe it is. No, actually, there's one more. So let's move forward. Can we talk about the annual report? Eddie, would you like to? Or
I did that actually. I forgot to put my name.
Okay.
Yeah. So quick question relating to docs again. We have a contributing .md on the SIGs, like what repo is that, org or community? And it's definitely out of date, and it's also specifically about kubectl. So one of the action items that we have to do for the annual report is certifying that it is not out of date. So I wanted to bring up that we need to do that work, and also point out like that it's very specific to kubectl, and there's already docs on that SIG CLI experimental site that are extremely brief, but also about how to get started contributing. So Sean, in particular, you and somebody else, I think maybe Munchie, are mentioned in this doc as being like pinged directly for support on issues and stuff like that, which I don't think is the process that we had wanted. So perhaps
yes, please don't ping me directly.
So I think we have some work to do there in any case. And the other thing for the annual report, more relevant to the whole entire group, is that we also have to certify that the maintainers lists are up to date on all the sub-projects. So that's something that we need all the sub-project owners to own and make sure that that's done before the report gets merged. I can say for both Karam functions and customize that is already done.
Awesome, thank you. I will. We can talk about this on Slack too. I gotta do feedback. I know Nick gave me a bullet point I gotta add to there. It's funny, I did SIG testings yesterday, and they might be in a little worse shape than we are when it comes to owners files. So, yeah. Any other specific action you want to take from that? We just need everyone to confirm their owners.
Yeah. Do we have an immediate sense of with the contributing.md, like is that where we want to keep the main docs versus the like short thing on the site? Maybe just point it back to contributing.md. Just we were talking about the docs anyway. We can also just continue that conversation in Slack or on the annual report. It's just like a pretty big chunk of work that we're gonna have to do in short order here, but yeah, that's up to the lead. So
yeah, SIG testing doesn't even have a contributing MD, so we can. I think most people honestly just have the boilerplate one. I'm looking through some. SIG release doesn't have one. SIG docs has one. There's very short. So yeah, we can talk through cleaning that up. We can send a draft to the mailing list too if you want. I know at one point we had a list of things that were like, here's what Phil will review PRs on. So I'm sure that's in there somewhere.
Yeah, probably. It's very long. All right, that's enough about the annual report then.
Okay, it looks like we have about 10 minutes left. Is it should we move on then, Katrina?
Yep.
Okay, great. So Nick and Cora, we have some information on a user study.
Yeah, so I don't know if you remember, we had a summer intern, Cora Coleman from UCSD about last summer, and she endeavored on a user study to see what people prefer, CLIs, consoles, IDEs, as part of her PhD studies. And as usual with academic research, the turnarounds are slow. We submitted some for publication, and Cora, we'll hear next month about whether it's accepted or rejected. Cora would like to not publicize it too much, just, to make sure, because it's anonymous review. But the paragraph I have there is what she's happy to share for now. But things could change in a few weeks. So mostly I wanted to, I can summarize the findings in a second, but are you all interested in hearing from her, sort of a deeper dive on what she found? She has a lot of numbers, really interesting numbers about, sort of comparing expertise level versus preference and how the preference varies depending on the task the users are performing. Are they debugging? Are they monitoring? Are they doing applies? And some really interesting findings, I think. So if you're interested, we can slot out, whatever, 5 or 10 minutes for her to talk at some point. She's happy to anytime. So the main thing we found, I think, is unsurprising to us on the CLI side, is that but I think surprising to the people, to designers we talked to, that CLIs were the vast preference for most tasks and across the board of expertise. Beginners across the board. In fact, beginners prefer the CLI more than some of the other expertise levels. The monitoring tasks, unsurprisingly, are the ones where consoles were preferred more, but there the diversity of preference was high, you know, so it wasn't just one console, right? They liked using a lot of things. So I think anyway, that the feedback, whenever I talk to designers, I'm not sure if you spend much time talking to designers, but their real mindset is really centered around developing their web consoles around a beginner experience. And I think our data, I don't know, my experience runs counter to that, and the data we've collected runs counter to what their assumptions are. So I'll let you know how it goes with the submission. But anyway, she's happy to talk anytime in more depth. I've just summarized her work. Hopefully I've done it justice.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, I would vote for that. I mean, I think that would be a great topic at one of our future meetings to hear.
Okay, great. I'll let her know.
UI feedback.
Sounds good. Thank you. That's all I got.
Cool. I think we have about 5 minutes left. Should we try to fit in some stand-ups? Is anybody interested in that, or should we give everybody back 5 minutes of time? Okay, I'll just make a decision then that why don't we give you guys 5 minutes back, and maybe the next meeting we can get a few minutes of stand-ups for some of the sub-projects. So thank you very much for spending your time with us. Does anybody have anything before we sign off? Great, thanks for your time.